Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Communities, Wellbeing and Housing Committee, and also welcome to those joining us on the live stream as well. Can I just draw everyone's attention to page 3 within the agenda, please, which sets out the details regarding the fire safety instructions and the webcasting arrangements. Thank you. I'll move on to the agenda now. Item 1, apologies for absence. Any substitute members and non-members attending? Councillor Judy Gooding, I believe, is being substituted by Councillor Michael Hoy, and Councillor Adrian Eves has been substituted by Councillor Mrs Wilson. Councillor Linden, I believe, has sent apologies, and there are no non-members attending. Move us to item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of March 2025. Can I have your agreement, please, that the minutes of this meeting, held on the 11th of March 2025, be approved, subject to the amendment to item 12, whereby Councillor Lisa Newport moved the motion for this item and not Councillor James Newport. Are we agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. Item 3, to receive any declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No declarations of interest, thank you. Move to item 4, public questions unnoticed. There have been none received. Move to item 5, which is the Chair's report. However, before we go to item 5, can I just ask that the officers introduce themselves, please, as we do have some new members in the committee, and I think it's just helpful just to know who the officers are, please. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Kim Anderson. I'm the Corporate Manager for Communities, Leisure and Health.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Steer. I'm the Community Safety Manager.
Good evening, Lauren Stretch. I'm the Director of Housing.
Good evening. I'm Angela Abbott. I'm the Corporate Manager for Housing Needs and Delivery.
Thank you. Thank you all. So just a couple of items just to bring to your attention, please, from item 5. Very pleased with the work being made by the Revive Community Supermarket. In total, 96 households so far have been looked after through this scheme, which I'm fully supportive of. Myself and Councillor Marriott have recently visited Clements Hall, and we are very impressed with the work that everyone active have been carrying out in Clements Hall, and we are planning to visit Rayleigh Leisure Centre next week. Also welcome the news that the team have now recruited a community safety officer to Rochford, which is a welcome addition to the team. I would also like to acknowledge the incident that happened last Friday near East Essex Hackspace in Clements Hall, and my thoughts and prayers are with the family. Police were already on increased patrols at that location as part of the hotspot patrolling, and as such were able to respond quickly and identify the suspects involved, who have been arrested. Daily patrols will continue, and there is still an ongoing police investigation. The council will be working with everyone active and other partners to progress some of the increased diversionary activities as part of the Active Communities programme. In addition, I am in communication with Rochford District Council, the police and Essex Hackspace over immediate safety improvements in the area, in particular in relation to the lighting. Are there any other questions around the Chair's report, please? Okay, thank you. This report is for noting. Can it be noted, please, members? Thank you. Move on to...
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Can I just make a request that in the next Chair's report that we have an update on the dementia wristbands?
I'll ask that's included, please.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move us on to item 6 now, the allocations policy review. The report begins on page 19. The report seeks approval to adopt changes to the Council's housing allocations policy, which sets out the eligibility criteria for joining the housing register and how social housing in the district will be allocated. My thanks to Lauren and her team for putting together this substantial piece of work that was started under the previous administration. And thanks to those members of this committee that attended last night's briefing and asked a range of questions. I understand that if we pass this work tonight, then an all-member briefing will be held and each of our MPs will also be briefed. The move to choice-based lettings has been supported by all the residents that I have spoken with. And the changes to the current local connection criteria to those who only reside in the district has been supported in the ARC consultations. It is worth noting the maps on pages 98 and 100 of this pack, pages 19 and 21 of the ARC report, that show how many on the Rochford housing waiting list actually live in Castle Point and Southend, and who will also be on the waiting lists of those councils. I'd like to ask Lauren if she'd like to add anything to the report, and perhaps to give us a brief overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the changes are outlined in the report. However, to provide a short summary, there are two main changes to the local connection criteria, that is, which is in the residency criteria, so i.e. the length of time that you will have to live in the district before you're eligible to join the housing register. So this is proposed to increase to 5 years, and the eligibility to join via a family connection will cease other than those who are applying for sheltered accommodation or who have other legal exemptions. Outside of the residency criteria, the proposed changes are in relation to the priority bandings, which include how we assess things such as medical priorities, overcrowding and financial eligibility. As was just mentioned, the proposed changes also include the introduction of choice-based lettings, where residents will be able to place bids of interest on available properties, therefore exercising choice over where they live, and this will provide greater transparency of their place in the queue. All of the changes were subject to the residents' consultation, of which we received quite a high number of responses, and the changes outlined in the proposed policy were voted for in favour by the residents. The outcome of the consultation report can be found in the appendices. I'm happy to take any other questions, Chair.
Thank you, Lauren, for that update. Are there any questions, members, please? Councillor Hoy, please. Thank you. So, Councillor Hoy, please. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I didn't quite catch that there. There are some good things in this report, and it has been around a long time. I think actually it's the previous administration where it was started under, if we're talking about that. So it's been around for over a year at the moment, and I think there were some things then I objected to in it, and I'm still not happy with, and it's particularly around the residency criteria. To me, the aim of the residency criteria is to reduce the number of those on the housing list so that it's more in line with other councils. Now, just because other councils do it doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do in my view. I think there's a fundamental right to shelter in this country, and I think we should recognise the importance of allowing all residents to apply for housing, to put themselves onto the list. I think it's important that we maintain accessibility to all residents to that list, and I know there is something around vulnerability in there. But to back this up, and particularly around this area about where you reside, although the basic data shows a large majority in favour, when you actually break it down to those in affordable or social housing, it's much nearer 50-50 on the vote, and I think that suggests it's something that we ought to be looked at a bit more. So I'm not particularly happy about that aspect of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy, for your comments. I know that in the consultation that it was broadly in favour of changing the allocations policy. Lauren, did you want to come back on anything, please?
Just to answer the bit about the 50-50 question, so it's not people who currently live in social housing, it's people who are currently on the waiting list. We have obviously had that mapped, and as you would expect, the majority of people who are not in favour in that particular question are those who don't currently live within the district. So just to provide clarity on that point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lisa Newport, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got a comment to make, really, that this committee notes... Oh, firstly, I'd like to thank the officers for their hard work. And this committee notes that the proposed changes to the housing allocations policy have significant implications for residents across the district. Given the potential district-wide impact of these changes, and in the interest of transparency, democratic accountability and inclusive decision-making, I would like to propose that the housing allocation policy is referred to full council for the determination.
Thank you, Councillor Lisa Newport, for your question. I believe that the monitoring officer has already ruled on this issue. Lauren, would you just be able to confirm that, please? Thank you.
So we did take advice from the monitoring officer, who advised that at annual council in May it was agreed under the terms of reference that the committee will approve all policy decisions within their committee remit as per the Local Authority Committee System Regulation 2012. I understand the point that you're making is not necessarily whether or not it should be, but the advice was that it does not require approval at full council.
Would you like to come back? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I appreciate what the monitoring officer's advice is, I am proposing a motion that this is referred to full council for determination, and if I have a seconder, we should therefore be able to vote on that.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor Lisa Newport? Okay, thank you. We have a seconder there. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion, please? Okay, Councillor Brewer, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think I will second that, because when it comes to the all-members briefing, we'll take part on July the 2nd, I rather feel that we've got this committee meeting first and then the members are briefed afterwards of the results. And I must confess that I feel slightly that it should have been the other way around. That's my personal feeling, that's my comment. The further one is, I feel that if council's changing the criteria, this is what doesn't sit well with myself, apart from deferring this. I feel that the council is changing the criteria, that residents and those on the present housing list should not be affected. If we are making the changes, then residents aren't at fault, and in my opinion, it could be unfair that they're affected by being disqualified, downgraded, or taken off the list. I do understand that we're saying that some of these may not reside in the district. I just feel that as we allowed them to become part of that, I just would like that to be revisited and looked at to see if there's another way that can be done after the changes, and then the change is made, so we don't have any commencement after the future application, if I make that clear. Sorry, Chair. Unfortunately, whichever way we take this, the core issue is that we do not have sufficient housing for everybody. And extending the waiting list or extending the years to be in district, I don't think is going to make any change to that until we get to the root cause. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Obviously, I believe that the all-member briefing that's been put in the diary is there to enable all members to be aware of the proposed changes. In terms of those already on the list themselves, I believe this was touched upon in the briefing last night. Lauren, would you just be able to give us maybe a quick update on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so essentially at the moment we receive kind of less than 200 properties per year, and at the moment a considerable number of those are new builds. And obviously, at the moment, most of the new builds have come through, so we expect that number to drop. While I understand it is difficult to remove those that are currently on the list, if the change isn't made, and it's only made for new applicants, it would take a considerable number of years for those, for people who are already on there to be dealt with, and we're not managing the issue that is the reason we're looking at the allocations policy. What I can say is, following the resident consultation, we did make a change in relation to this. So we are not removing people who live within the district who currently meet the 3 years but don't meet the 5 years. What we will be doing what we're proposing to do in relation to that is that they will be suspended from the register until they wouldn't be successful for a property until they've met the 5 years, but they would not lose their place and the time that they've waited so far. So following the resident consultation, we did take some comments on board and we did make an amendment to that. But obviously the changes proposed for you today are for those that do not live in the district. They would be removed from the housing register.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton, please.
I'm very concerned about the direction the council's taken when it comes to housing the most vulnerable members of our community. The revised allocations policy we're discussing tonight is cruel. It's not grounded in compassion, and it does not reflect the reality of life in Rochford for hundreds of families who have already been on the social housing list for some time. This new policy, by tightening eligibility criteria, will automatically remove 32% of applicants from the housing register, roughly 273 applicants. And it's not because the need has disappeared, but because we moved the goalposts. This change in rules will effectively write these people off. They're no longer counted, but they're still very much in crisis. This is a bureaucratic sleight of hand, one that may make a spreadsheet look cleaner, but it does absolutely nothing to solve the real problem. According to our own local data, just under 1,000 households remain on the register after the cut. And for those still eligible, the wait times are beyond unreasonable. A family needing a 3-bedroom home may have to wait over 15 years. We're allocating around 140 social homes per year in Rochford, while hundreds apply annually. Last year, 930 households applied, and only 261 were even accepted onto the register. That means that 652 families, circa 75%, were told that they weren't eligible. Meanwhile, Rochford's affordability gap continues to grow. House prices have risen more and more, and around 70% in the last 15 years. Young people can't afford to stay in the area where they grew up. Key workers can't live near their jobs. Older residents downsizing face a lack of suitable, affordable options. We know this from data, and yet we're being presented with a policy that narrows access instead of expanding opportunity. Which brings me to one of the most devastating missteps the council has made in recent memory: the decision to withdraw support from the joint Newtown expression of interest with Southend. That was a visionary proposal of 10,000 new homes, half of them in Rochford, with infrastructure, services and crucially affordable housing embedded in the plan.
Councillor Booth, can we stick to the policy at hand, please? Thank you.
Okay, who wants to skip that bit? No, I think I'll save that. I urge this council to reject this policy, or at least support the amendments so all 39 elected councillors can debate and represent their constituents.
Thank you for your comments. They are noted. Lauren, would you like to come back on any of that, please? Thank you.
So obviously it's mentioned in the report. So this isn't just about reducing the waiting list. I fully accept that will be an outcome, that some people will not be on the list. But this is about managing expectations within what are difficult times, and it is about providing homes to local residents most in need. Residents out of the district will still be allowed to remain on the register from the district in which they live in. At the moment, Rochford district residents are not able to join other people's waiting lists like people are here, and therefore that decision's been made. So it's just to provide that information.
Thank you. Councillor Booth, please. No, pass. Councillor Mrs. Lorraine Shaw, thank you. Yes, we are. Is there anyone else that would like to talk to the motion, please? Councillor Hoy, thank you.
Thank you. I think I spoke previously just prior to the motion being put forward. I'll be very brief on this one, as I've spoken already. As I said, I don't support the new allocations policy as it stands, and therefore I do support this motion. I think it does deserve to be debated by full council, so all councillors are aware of this and can debate it fully in the presence of residents. I would say, and I think it's quite clear, that this is a policy being put forward purely to reduce the numbers on our housing waiting list, and it creates a black hole whereby there will be people in Rochford, people in Castle Point, people in Southend, who, with this policy being universal throughout all the councils, will be unable to join any waiting list until they've lived in a district or city or borough for 5 years. So they're being excluded on purpose from any housing list, not just our housing list. So I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Lorraine, do you want any comments on that?
Nothing to add.
Are there any other comments on the amendment, please, members? If there's not, then can we please take it to the vote? So we are voting on the amendment that the committee refers the revised allocations policy to full council for decisions. So those in favour, please. Thank you. And those against, please.
Sorry,
And
Chairman, may I have my vote recorded as voting for the motion?
You may, thank you. And you. Yes. Thank you. Okay, that motion is lost. Can we return, please, to the substantive motion? Were there any other comments that were... Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Lorraine Shaw. Thank you.
Thank you. This is for Lauren. I've read the report. I may have missed it, so I do apologise. But when people in care, the adults, they have to come out at usually 18, maybe 25 in special circumstances, and they're in our district with the care homes, will they automatically go onto the housing list? Because they don't. Because they won't have the 3-year, 5-year criteria. I know we are doing it for the armed forces, but for the care leavers, I'm just concerned. Thank you.
Lorraine, could I ask you to reply, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so there are exemptions to the criteria, and there are multiple ones of those. So people who are, as you said, unable to build that connection, there are, so that's care leavers, also people obviously fleeing domestic abuse, and different bits. So the exemptions are in the policy, and most of them are nationally recognised exemptions. And we have obviously followed through where we know it's difficult for people to build that connection. We've put those exemptions in.
Thank you. Are there any other members that wanted to ask any other questions? So Councillor Wilson first, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mine isn't actually a question, it's more a statement. I would just like to say that, in my opinion, this policy is a really thoroughly reviewed policy. I think all points have been looked at. Nothing is perfect in this world. If we had sufficient housing, we wouldn't have a housing list. I think it's fair. I think it's particularly fair to our residents. I like the different criteria set, and would just like to say that actually I support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy, please. Councillor Hoy, please.
Sorry, Chairman. I should have asked this before. It was a very quick question about on page 22 on my report, which is under the financial criteria. It talks about. It says, currently, while not set out in policy, specifically generally a threshold of £30,000 was set for single households, but it did not consider family-sized accommodation. I assume, and I want to be told I'm assuming correctly, this is an annual income for a single person, and does that mean that anyone earning above that would not be eligible? And are we aware that that's really, it's about £4,500 above minimum wage at that level? So is that being changed or looked at? I did look at the appendices, and because it says Appendix 2 allocations policy as referring to that, and I couldn't find anything around the income on that, just the capital receipts.
Okay, thank you for your question. Lorraine, are you able to help with that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so that refers to the original policy. So it was just one standard flat income threshold. So it didn't take into consideration that in larger households you're likely to need more money and you would require a different amount. In the new thresholds, it's based on a percentage of your income. So that's fairer and actually reduces the issues you're talking about. For single people, the criteria and amount has actually increased.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, members, please? If there are no more questions, then I will move the recommendation set out on page 19 of the report. Recommendation 1, that the committee approves the revised allocations policy as set out in Appendix A to the report and the introduction of choice-based lettings. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mrs. Loreenshaw, thank you. And can we carry out a vote by a show of hands, please? Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. The motion is passed. Thank you, members. I'd now like to move us on to item 7, CCTV fees and charges. The report begins on page 119. This report sets out the proposal for charging for requests for CCTV footage. Can I ask if Sean Steer, do you have anything that you would like to add to this report, please?
Just a couple of bits. So currently we are not charging for requests for footage for things like traffic collisions. Operators who spend 2 or 3 hours looking for footage and downloading the footage. So we're proposing a fee to cover officer time and equipment. And the proposals or suggestions are laid out in the report.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any questions? Yes, please. Councillor Lisa Newport, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Mr. Steer. Can I just ask, is that proportionate to the number of cameras, that the CCTV cameras that we've got? Because I understand with Brentwood you have a lot more cameras, so it would take a lot more time. We have far fewer cameras. So is that figure, that fee, proportionate to the number of cameras that you would be reviewing the footage of? Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, are you able to respond, please?
Yeah, it will still take the same amount of time looking for that footage, because it may be that they might say a certain time that when that collision happened, we'd still have to review all the footage.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yep. Councillor Wilson, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Really good report again. What it doesn't tell us is, carrying on from Councillor Newport's question, is how many CCTV cameras do we have in the district? And are they, I know they're all monitored by Brentwood, but yeah, exactly the same. What proportion? And will they all be in areas that are likely to want footage? Because not all CCTV cameras are.
Thank you. Sean, can you respond, please? Thank you.
Yeah, currently there are 7 cameras in Raleigh High Street. So any vehicles that go there, if they're involved in a collision, then that might relate to a request for footage. Currently, there haven't been any requests for Rochford. The cameras haven't been in that long, to be honest. But there's potentially, if we do increase the number of cameras, then potential for more requests will come in.
Of course.
Sorry. So we have a total of 7 cameras.
That would pick up, so a total of 8, but there are 7 that would pick up any collisions, potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Or civil requests.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Loreenshaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask how many requests you get in a year, please? Oh, sorry, did I miss that? Sorry.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, please, members? If not, then I will move the recommendation set out on page 119 of the report. Recommendation 1, that the committee approves the proposed fees and charges to be implemented for CCTV subject access requirements from insurance groups and solicitors, including individuals, regarding civil claims as set out in the report. Do I have a seconder for this, please? Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Loreenshaw. And we'll vote by a show of hands. Those for? Thank you. And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. And that motion is passed. Thank you, members. I would now like to move us on to item 8, which is the Rochford Priority Fund. The report begins on page 125, and the purpose of this report is to approve how the Rochford Priority Fund will be allocated. I am pleased to introduce this item to members. This is an excellent way to enable elected members to engage with their localities in a meaningful way. It is based on an idea that Brentwood are also looking to carry out, but have not yet started. While I am sure that many members will be able to come up with a range of projects to put forward, and some may be able to spend far more than this amount, I'm not sure that all members will be able to find suitable projects to spend £1,800 on. The original figure to be distributed to members from a budget of total £90,000 was £1,800 per member, although this also included funding for officer support. The member grant scheme actually totalled £70,200, leaving £19,800 set aside for officer support. I felt that the figure of £1,800 per member was high for an untested scheme, with not all ward members so engaged in their local communities. I would suggest that a more reasonable initial amount that each councillor can bid for is up to £900. Members can still work together in wards to bid for a bigger project, up to £2,700 in total. Depending on how well this round goes and how good the geographical spread is, we then have the flexibility to carry out a further member round later in the year and to focus on any areas that did not apply for funding. We can then ensure that all areas, particularly those of high deprivation in the district, are covered. In contrast, the community grant scheme that is currently underway for this year only has £30,000 available in it and is likely to be oversubscribed, as it is most years. Depending on how oversubscribed the community fund is, we also have the ability to boost the community grant fund. The timings of the two grant schemes will enable this to happen. Finally, we will be in a position to proactively celebrate National Volunteers Week next year with events for those who are volunteers in the district, and £10,000 has been set aside for this. In addition, I will draw members' attention to the final financial implications section of this report, which identifies that £10,000 will need to be allocated for resources to effectively and efficiently administer the fund, as existing resources do not exist to do this. This is a reduction of nearly £10,000 from the original report. Kim, would you like to add anything to the report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that there will be a shared post across Brentwood and Rochford to administer the two grant pots that we've got. And an online form is being developed, and once that's ready to launch, I will send an email to all members with a link to the form to complete. And then I'll bring a report back next year for members around how the monies were allocated.
Lovely, thank you, Kim. Are there any questions, members, please? Councillor Lisa Newport, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll draw your attention to the last meeting held on the 11th of March, and the agenda item 12, the Rochford Priorities Fund, was resolved unanimously. And the recommendations that were resolved unanimously were that members approve the principles of the Rochford Priorities Fund, and that members authorise the Interim Director of Communities and Health, in consultation with the Chair of Communities, Wellbeing and Housing, develop an application form with supporting scheme criteria, monitoring and evaluation requirements of the Priorities Fund. So the plan was that this was launched this June, as I'm sure, and I understand that the date's not changed, and that was indicated by Kim Anderson in May. As the internal legal team had also approved this, the forms had been done, all the background work had been done, the legal team had approved this. So as I questioned the reasoning behind the change, I was advised that you, Chair, had indicated that you want to propose this new approach. So my question is, what are the exact reasons behind this new approach? And surely this new approach is going to cost more in officer resource time, as we've already done the background work on it. So if you could answer that, that would be great. Thank you.
I guess under the new administration, there was a chance to review policies that have been carried out before, which is what I've done and endeavoured to do. I felt that the amount of money that was being put towards an untested scheme was very high, £90,000. And actually, when we dug into the detail of it, there was nearly £20,000 that was going to be allocated to the officers' time to do so, which under the new scheme has been reduced to £10,000. So actually, in so doing, we'll be actually making more money available to our communities. I hope that helps. We've also spoken to the monitoring officer on this, and he felt that under the because it's a new administration, then we're able to amend existing policies. Lorraine, did you want to come in on that as well, please? Was that Kim? Sorry, I think Kim was going to just speak to that, please. Thank you.
Just to say, I believe the monitoring officer has provided a response to councillors around the governance around the changes to this, so there should have been a response. So those councillors that are talking about the governance, so that has been provided to members. I can send it out to all members of the committee if that's appropriate.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to come back, Chair. So whilst I appreciate your thinking and the new administration's thinking in an untested scheme for funding, and you say about the officer resource and time, then surely in the proposal that's in this new report, there's the option for 2 rounds of funding. Well, surely that will cost a lot more in officer time to do 2 rounds of funding as opposed to 1.
What this proposal gives us is the opportunity to be flexible. I've already mentioned the previous grant scheme that's actually underway. It's only had £30,000 allocated to it. That grant scheme is oversubscribed every year, and I felt that funding amount was very low. What this enables us to do is to look at the grant schemes, the proposals that come forward, either through the Rochester Priorities Fund or the Community Grant Scheme, and actually to see where the rest of that money can be best allocated. So in effect, there'll be a second round of the scheme, but we'll be able to look at the grants that have come forward and make a decision based on what we feel is the best use of that money. But also we'll have the opportunity to go back to councillors where maybe they're not so engaged in their communities and say, well, actually, there's nobody from this ward that's put a grant scheme forward. Maybe you could do that, please. Or if there's an area of high deprivation in the district, we'll have the opportunity to actually focus on those areas and make sure that each area puts sufficient grant schemes forward. Thank you. One more, please. Go on.
Thank you. Just one last point then, if I may. You say about that there's an underspend anyway in the budget, but on my further question is the £10,000 for the Volunteers Week. I'm not, to acknowledge the volunteers. I'm not opposed to that at all. But that's in 2026. So surely that will come out of next year's budget, not this year's budget. Is that not right?
The preparation, the groundwork to do that would need to be started quite soon to make sure that it was an effective event or series of events that were put on for National Volunteers Week next year. I don't think we'd have the timing to be able to do that within the budget next year. And Kim, if you're able to have any thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, just to say that a lot of planning, it probably takes 6 months worth of planning, so I would say that we start that process this year, and then if we need to carry forward any budget to 26, then we do that. But it'll be June 26, so it's fairly new into the new municipal year.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Mrs Shaw, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a good scheme. Being an Essex County Councillor, we have something similar anyway, as Councillor Hoy will also attest to. And not all councillors at Essex take up the offer of the money, the grant. They do not get chased, so that's fact. So if we are actually, you're saying that some areas might not need it, but obviously you can go out and say, have you thought about it, blah, 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 but which is good. But if there is an underspend from councillors this year, 25-26, are we assured that the underspend will be carried forward for 26-27? Or are we going to lose it?
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I mean, that's partly why we're looking at having some flexibility around how the remainder of the fund is used. We don't actually know how many of our elected members will put a grant scheme together. £1,800 is actually quite a significant amount of money for elected members, totalling nearly £70,000 across the district. Well, that's quite a significant amount of public money on an untested scheme. Reducing that amount to £900 enables our elected members, hopefully each of them, to come forward with a good scheme. But it also gives us the flexibility to chase elected members and say, we haven't actually used that money yet, please do so. In terms of any underspend, I wouldn't expect there to be any. Kim, would you like to come back on that, please?
Again, I think any decisions around an underspend will be for members to decide whether that's a carry forward for 26-27 or it's allocated elsewhere, say into the community fund, etc.
Yes, please. Thank you.
We at Essex have a minimum spend. Well, we're allocated £5,000, but we have a minimum spend of 300. Will this scheme actually have a minimum spend? I'd like it put on tape. It may be on it, but I was actually asking the officer, not another member of the council. Thank you.
Yes, there is a minimum spend requirement which is listed in the report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, please, members? Councillor Hoy, thank you.
I heard you that time, Chairman. So we're improving. There's a few things. Just to put this on record, that I don't agree with the changes made. £1,800 sounds a lot, but it can go very, very quickly if there are organisations that have got very good schemes that they want to put forward. A significant amount of work was put into this already, and officers and the legal team agreed £1,800 was a good way to go. So I think that's where it should still be. Again, I'll just echo Councillor Newport's point. We're talking about June 2026 for the volunteers celebratory event. I would have liked more information on how that would be seen to benefit the voluntary sector. I mean, is it intended to get more volunteers? Or is it intended to get more visibility for the organisations that might need more volunteers? I'm a bit unsure what it means. I'll draw the Chairman's attention to page 128 of the scheme under financial implications. I don't know if it's a typo in the report, but the Chairman said £20,000 was originally put forward to admin, but the report clearly says it was £10,000. Within the £90,000 budget, £10,000 has been allocated for administrative support. I don't know if that means the original 90 or the old 90 or the new 90. So I'd like clarification on that. However, I don't see why. I would need to be convinced of why one round of £900 each would cost twice as much as one round of £1,800 each. If we're doing due diligence on the same number of bids, it should still be the same. There might be a slight increase if we're getting information based on value, but that's not normally the case. It's normally the work will be done on each bid, and it will be the same regardless of how much the bid will be. And I would have thought that it's more likely to change if there are a number of different bids made. That was all. I'd agree with Councillor Mrs. Shaw in that we should have clarity about what happens to any underspend by any councillor. I think we should be automatically saying that if there is an underspend, it goes straight to the community grant fund, perhaps. So there is clarity there. That would be much better. And I think that would be much better than a second round. But I don't really agree with the second round anyway, as I've said. I think they were the main points. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hoy. I've tried to make a note of some of your questions there. Members do have the opportunity to work together in their wards, so actually a project could be covered for £2,700. There's nothing to stop members working together to collaborate together to put together a bigger grant scheme, so I would encourage members to do that. In terms of the officer time, that was actually in the previous report back in March, and I was surprised that it wasn't picked up back in March, because actually if you look at the funding that was made available, it was 39 elected members, each got £1,800, which totaled £70,000, 70,200. And in the report in March, it did say that space and money was made available for the officers, so that would be the remainder of the £90,000, which was 19,800. So this revised version of the grant scheme is actually reducing the amount of money that's been put forward to officer time to £10,000. Finally, I do take your comments on board in terms of the clarity around the underspend. I think Kim has already addressed that we will bring any underspend back to this committee, as I do want to see it all spent in our communities. Thank you. Are there any other questions, members, please? If there are no further questions, then I would like to move the recommendations set out in pages 125 to 126 of the report. Are you happy for me to do this en bloc, members? Is that agreed? Thank you. So recommendation 1, that the committee approves the allocation of the total sum of £45,000 from the Rochford Priority Fund to enable members to submit projects identified in their ward areas as detailed in this report. R2, that delegated authority is given to the Interim Director, Communities and Health, in consultation with the Chair of the Communities, Wellbeing and Housing, to consider and approve applications to the Rochford Priority Fund in accordance with the agreed fund principles. Recommendation 3, that the committee approves the use of £10,000 from the Rochford Priority Fund to develop a volunteer celebration events to be delivered in June 2026 during Volunteer Week. And R4, that delegated authority is given to the Interim Director, Communities and Health, in consultation with the Chairman of the Communities, Wellbeing and Housing Committee, to agree whether the remaining funding of £25,000 should be used to either A, open up a second round of Rochford Priority Fund, or B, supplement the Rochford Community Fund to enable more projects to be supported. And finally, recommendation 5, that a report be brought back to this committee in February 2026, setting out the projects supported across the district. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Mr. Shaw. Can we go to the vote, please? Those in favour, please raise your hands. And those against. And those abstaining, please. Thank you. Thank you, members. That motion is passed. I would now like to move us on to item 9, the committee work programme. The report sets out the work programme for the committee 2025-26, that municipal year. I'd like to invite any questions or suggestions from committee members for this work programme, but I would ask that if you are to make a suggestion for the work programme, that you also email it into Victoria, please, just that we have an idea what those proposals are. Members, any thoughts, comments, or any other ideas for the work programme in 2025-26? Councillor Marriott.
Chairman, I'd like there to be an event around men's health in November, if possible.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marriott. Are there any other suggestions, members, please? My only suggestion was to invite the Revive Community Supermarket back again. I know they did a presentation earlier in the year, and I'd very much like to see them back here again, giving an update on the good work that they are doing within the district. Thank you. If there are no other comments, members, or suggestions, then can we just note the work programme for the year, please? Noted. And that concludes our business for this evening. Thank you for your attendance, and the meeting ended at 8:20. Thank you.